The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, by John M. Gottman, Ph.D., and Nan Silver. Introduction. Picture this. It's a bright, clear morning in Seattle. A young couple, Mark and Janice, are sitting down to breakfast in a lovely studio apartment. Through the window, they can see the deep blue waters of a lake, with runners jogging along the park path. They're sharing the Sunday paper, munching on French toast. Later, he might watch a football game while she calls her mom. It seems perfectly ordinary. Until you notice the 3 video cameras bolted to the walls, and the microphones clipped to their collars, and the monitors strapped around their chests, tracking their heartbeats. This cozy apartment isn't their home. It's a laboratory at the University of Washington, affectionately known as the Love Lab, and for decades, a brilliant researcher named Drive. John Gottman has been bringing couples here to uncover one of life's greatest mysteries: what makes love last? Imagine being able to listen to a couple talk for just 15 minutes and predict, with over 90% accuracy, whether they will stay together, happy and fulfilled, or whether their marriage will eventually crumble into divorce. It sounds like a superpower, doesn't it? But for Drive Gottman, it's not magic. It's science. After studying thousands of couples, analyzing every sigh, every eye roll, every gentle touch, he cracked the code. He discovered the invisible forces that either glue a relationship together or tear it apart. This book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, has sold over 1 million copies for a simple reason: it's the map Drive Gottman created from his research. It's a practical guide, born not from opinion or guesswork, but from decades of hard data on what truly happy couples do differently. And today, I'm going to walk you through that map. By the end of our time together, you will understand the simple, almost secret habits that can rescue a relationship on the brink of collapse, or turn a good marriage into a great one. You'll learn why most marriage advice is wrong, and you'll discover the single most important ingredient for a deep, lasting, and passionate connection. This isn't just about avoiding divorce, it's about building a life of shared joy and meaning. So, settle in, and let's step inside the Love Lab. Book summary. So, how did he do it? How could a scientist in a lab coat predict the fate of something as personal and mysterious as a marriage? For years, the common wisdom, the advice you'd get from therapists, from magazines, from everyone, was all about one thing: communication. The idea was that if couples could just learn to resolve their conflicts better, to fight more nicely, everything would be fine. Therapists taught something called active listening, where you calmly paraphrase your partner's feelings. You'd say things like, "I hear you saying you feel lonely," instead of, "You never come home on time." It sounds good in theory. But when Drive Gottman looked at his own data, at the videotapes of thousands of hours of real couples interacting, he found something shocking. The couples who were happily married, the ones who were still in love after decades together, they almost never used active listening when they argued. In fact, some of them had loud, passionate arguments that broke all the rules. And yet, their marriages thrived. This discovery turned the world of relationship therapy on its head. It meant that successful conflict resolution wasn't the secret sauce. It wasn't the key to a lasting marriage. The mountains of popular advice were built on a foundation of myth. Gottman realized he had been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, "What do unhappy couples do when they fight?" he started asking, "What do happy couples do when they're not fighting?" And the answer was surprisingly simple. Happy marriages are built on a deep friendship. That's it. That's the foundation. Not a complicated communication technique, not a perfect alignment of interests, but a genuine, profound friendship. He means a mutual respect for and enjoyment of each other's company. These couples know each other intimately. They know each other's hopes, fears, quirks, and dreams. They have an abiding regard for each other, and they show it not in grand, romantic gestures, but in small, everyday moments. Think about it like building a house. Gottman calls it the sound relationship house. Friendship, trust, and commitment are the strong, weight-bearing walls. And the 7 principles he discovered are the different floors of this house, each one building upon the last. Without the strong walls of friendship, the house can't stand up to the storms of life. This friendship creates something powerful, a kind of positive energy that Gottman calls positive sentiment override. When a marriage has this, the couple's positive thoughts about each other are so pervasive that they tend to outweigh the negative ones. If your partner is snippy one morning, you don't immediately think, "They're so selfish." You think, "They must have had a bad night's sleep or they must be stressed about work." You give them the benefit of the doubt. But when that friendship erodes, the opposite happens. You get trapped in negative sentiment override. Everything gets interpreted through a negative filter. A neutral comment like, "Did you take out the trash?" sounds like an accusation. The relationship gets stuck in what Gottman calls the Roach Motel for lovers. Couples check in, but they can't check out. They're trapped in a cycle of negativity, where every action is seen as selfish and every word is a potential attack. It is in this place of distrust that relationships begin to truly die. So, how do we build that friendship? How do we construct that sound relationship house? It starts with the very first floor, the foundation of it all. Principle number 1 is to enhance your love maps. A love map is Gottman's term for the part of your brain where you store all the relevant information about your partner's life. It's the detailed, intricate map of their inner world. Let me tell you a story about a couple from the research. Drive. Rory and his wife, Lisa. Rory was a brilliant pediatrician, a workaholic who saved babies' lives. He was beloved at the hospital. But at home, he didn't know the names of his own children's friends. He didn't know the name of the family dog. He had become so consumed by his work that there was almost no space left in his brain for the details of his wife's world. His love map of her life was a blank page. Lisa felt emotionally disconnected, and her small attempts to show she cared just seemed to annoy him. Their relationship was starving from a lack of knowledge. You see, you can't truly love someone you don't really know. Emotionally intelligent couples, by contrast, are intimately familiar with each other's world. He knows her favorite artist. She knows what stresses him out at work. He knows that she has secret doubts about her faith. She knows he fears being too much like his father. They keep updating this information as their partner's world changes. This knowledge is what prepares a couple for life's biggest storms. In his research on newlyweds, Gottman found that about 67% of couples experienced a huge drop in marital satisfaction after the birth of their first child. That's a staggering number. But what about the other 33%? What did they do differently? The couples whose marriages thrived after the baby arrived were the ones who had detailed love maps from the very beginning. Because they were already in the habit of keeping up to date with each other's inner worlds, the seismic shift of parenthood didn't throw them off course. They navigated the change together. Without a love map, it's easy for a marriage to lose its way when life changes. The more you know and understand about each other, the easier it is to stay connected. So, how well do you know your partner's world? It's a question worth asking. This leads us to the second floor of our house. Once you have that map, you need to use it. Principle number 2 is to nurture your fondness and admiration. This sounds obvious, doesn't it? Of course, happy couples like and admire each other. But Gottman found this is one of the most crucial elements in a lasting romance, and it's something that can be fragile. Fondness and admiration are the antidote to contempt. Contempt is the most destructive of what Gottman calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, 4 communication styles that are so lethal to a relationship they can predict its end. We'll get to the others in a moment, but contempt is the most poisonous. It's any statement or nonverbal behavior that puts you on a higher plane than your partner. It's sarcasm, cynicism, name-calling, eye-rolling, mockery. It conveys disgust. And it's virtually impossible to solve a problem when your partner is getting the message that you're disgusted with them. If you maintain a fundamental sense of respect and admiration for your spouse, you are far less likely to slide into contempt when you disagree. You might be frustrated, angry, or hurt, but you won't feel disgusted. The best test of whether a couple still has a functioning fondness and admiration system is how they view their past. When Gottman interviews couples, he asks them about their history, how they met, their first dates, their wedding. In happy marriages, couples look back on their early days fondly. Even if things went wrong, it rained on their wedding day, or the caterer was a disaster, they remember the highlights. They glorify the struggles they've been through together, drawing strength from them. But when a marriage is in trouble, history gets rewritten for the worse. Suddenly, she remembers he was 30 minutes late for the wedding. He now focuses on how she was flirting with his best man at the rehearsal dinner. The positive memories have been destroyed by the present-day negativity. Gottman found that 94% of the time, couples who put a positive spin on their marriage's history are likely to have a happy future. When those happy memories are distorted, it's a sign the marriage needs urgent help. Remember, drive. Rory, the workaholic doctor, his marriage to Lisa was on the verge of collapse. But a glimmer of hope appeared when an interviewer asked them about their early years. As Rory began to describe their first date, his whole face lit up. He recalled how nervous she was and how he knew it would take a long 5-year marathon to win her over. Lisa beamed. He had never told her this before. In that moment, they held hands. That small interaction, that fond memory, was proof that their fondness and admiration system, though buried under years of resentment, was still alive. And because it was, their marriage was salvageable. Reviving this system is about getting into the habit of scanning your world for things to appreciate about your partner. And then, this is the important part, letting them know. Catch them doing something right, even something small. Thanks for making dinner. I love the way you handled that call with your sister. You look amazing in that shirt. These small, everyday appreciations are deposits in your relationship's bank account. And that brings us to the third principle, which is all about making those deposits every single day. Principle number 3 is to turn toward each other instead of away. Hollywood has given us a very distorted idea of romance. We think of grand gestures, passionate speeches in the rain. But drive. Gottman's research shows that real-life romance is fueled by far more humdrum scenes. It's kept alive in the tiny, seemingly insignificant moments that happen all day long. In marriage, couples are constantly making what Gottman calls bids for each other's attention, affection, humor, or support. A bid can be something as major as "I'm worried about my mom's health," or as minor as "Wow, look at that boat outside." Every time a bid is made, the partner has a choice. They can turn toward the bid, or they can turn away. Turning toward is simple. The husband says, "Wow, look at that boat," and the wife looks up from her book and says, "Yeah, that's beautiful. That's it." It's a tiny moment of connection. Turning away is when she doesn't look up, or just grunts in response. These moments are the fundamental building blocks of emotional connection and trust. In a 6-year follow-up study of newlyweds, Gottman found that the couples who stayed married had turned toward each other's bids 86% of the time in the lab. The couples who divorced, they only turned toward each other 33% of the time. The vast majority of their arguments weren't about big issues like money or sex. They were about the accumulated pain of these failed bids for connection. Each time you turn toward your partner's bid, you are making a deposit in what Gottman calls your emotional bank account, A strong friendship and a full bank account create a cushion of goodwill that helps you weather the rough times. It's the small, everyday choices, forwarding a funny email, listening to them complain about their boss, asking how was your day, and actually listening to the answer, that fuel the flames of romance. A romantic vacation only works if you've kept the pilot light burning with these small moments. If the account is empty, a fancy dinner will just feel like an awkward meal with a stranger. So far, we've built the foundation of the house: love maps, fondness, and admiration, and turning toward. These three principles are all about strengthening the friendship. With that strong foundation in place, we're now ready to deal with the inevitable storms: conflict. And this is where Gottman's research gets really interesting. He made a groundbreaking discovery: all marital conflicts fall into one of two categories. Either they are solvable, or they are perpetual. And here's the kicker: 69% of all marital conflicts are perpetual. Think about that. Nearly 70% of the things you and your partner argue about will never be solved. They are rooted in fundamental differences in your personalities, your values, your lifestyles. You want to have kids. He doesn't. She's a neat freak. He's a slob. He wants to save every penny. She believes life is for living. These problems will be a part of your lives forever, in one form or another. Couples spend years trying to change each other's minds, but it can't be done. You are not going to magically make your spontaneous, adventure-loving partner into a meticulous planner. Fighting over these differences is a waste of time and energy, and it harms the marriage. Happy couples intuitively understand this. They know that these perpetual problems are like a trick knee or a bad back. You don't cure them, you learn to live with them. You develop strategies to cope, avoid situations that make them worse, and approach them with a sense of humor. They keep the problem in its place and don't let it overwhelm the relationship. Unhappy couples, on the other hand, get stuck. They have the same conversation over and over again, making no headway. They become gridlocked. When you're gridlocked, you feel rejected by your partner. The conversations are fruitless. You become more and more entrenched in your positions, unwilling to budge. You may stop talking about it, but the tension is always there, under the surface. This leads to emotional distance, loneliness, and the death of the marriage. The remaining 31% of conflicts are solvable. These are more situational. The conflict isn't about some deep, underlying difference. It's about a particular problem, and there is a solution. For example, who should take out the trash, or what to do about a specific work deadline that's causing stress. The key is to tell the difference. Once you know if you're dealing with a solvable or a perpetual problem, you can use the right tools. This brings us to the next three principles, which are all about navigating conflict. Principle number 4 is, let your partner influence you. This one is particularly important, Gottman's research shows, for men. In his long-term studies, he found that marriages where the husband resists sharing power with his wife are statistically doomed. In fact, he found that in 81% of cases where the marriage failed, the husband's refusal to accept influence was the key factor. This doesn't mean the husband has to give up all his power and just say, "Anything you say, dear." It means honoring and respecting your partner's feelings and perspective, and being willing to compromise. It means searching for common ground. When making a decision, an emotionally intelligent husband will ask for his wife's opinion and take it seriously. He doesn't just listen, he allows her perspective to influence his own. He chooses us over me. Gottman found that women, even in unhappy marriages, tend to do this naturally. They are more likely to accept their husband's influence. But men often struggle with it. Why? It goes back to how boys and girls are often raised. From a young age, boys' games are often about competition and achieving a goal, while girls' games are more focused on relationships and feelings. Girls learn to cooperate and compromise to keep the game going. As a result, women tend to be more emotionally intelligent. When a husband learns to accept his wife's influence, he's not just making her happy, he's making the marriage stronger, more intimate, and more satisfying for both of them. He is open to learning from her about the world of emotion, which strengthens their friendship. This willingness to share power is a fundamental sign of respect. With that attitude of mutual respect in place, you can now tackle the two types of conflict. Principle number 5 is to solve your solvable problems. Gottman offers a simple, 5-step method for resolving these conflicts without causing damage. It boils down to having good manners. First, soften your startup. The way a conversation begins is critical. Research shows that you can predict the outcome of a conversation in the first 3 minutes. If it starts with criticism and accusation, a harsh startup, it's doomed to fail. A softened startup means complaining, but not blaming. Use I statements instead of you statements. Say, "I'm worried about the bills, not you're so careless with money." Be polite. Describe what is happening. Don't evaluate or judge. Second, learn to make and receive repair attempts. A repair attempt is any statement or action, silly or serious, that prevents negativity from escalating out of control. It's the secret weapon of emotionally intelligent couples. It could be a joke, a touch, or a simple phrase like, "Let's take a break," or "I'm sorry." The key is not how eloquent the repair attempt is, but whether it gets through. In happy marriages, these attempts work. In unhappy ones, they are often missed or ignored because the air is already so thick with negativity. Fourth, compromise. This is the heart of problem solving. It's not about one person winning and the other losing. It's about both partners feeling understood and respected. The key to compromise is to first identify your core, non-negotiable needs on the issue, and then identify the areas where you can be flexible. Once you each know what you can't give up and what you can start to find a workable solution. And fifth, deal with emotional injuries. Even after a solvable problem is resolved, arguments can leave scars. These emotional injuries need to be processed. This means talking about what happened from each person's perspective, not to debate who was right, but to understand each other's reality and apologize for any hurt that was caused. This 5-step process is a powerful toolkit for the 31% of your problems that are solvable. But what about the other 69%? What do you do when you're gridlocked? That brings us to principle number 6, overcome gridlock. You can't solve a perpetual problem, but you can move from gridlock to dialogue. The goal is to defang the issue, to remove the hurt, so you can live with the disagreement peacefully. Gottman discovered something profound about gridlocked conflicts. At the core of every gridlocked problem, there is an unrequited dream. A dream, in this sense, isn't just a fantasy. It's a deeply held hope, aspiration, or value that gives purpose and meaning to a person's life. It might be a dream of adventure, of security, of having a close-knit family, of spiritual journey, or of feeling honored and respected. These dreams are often rooted in our childhood experiences. When a dream isn't being respected or honored by a partner, that's when a couple gets gridlocked. The argument isn't really about the surface issue, it's about the dream that's being denied. Take Ed and Luann, a couple from the research. They were in constant conflict over Luann's horse, Daphne. Ed saw the horse as a huge financial drain and wanted her to sell it. Luann refused. They were gridlocked. The more they argued, the more entrenched they became. But the argument wasn't really about money. When they dug deeper, Luann revealed her dream. Her childhood was chaotic and lonely. Her horse was her one source of peace and connection. Riding Daphne represented a dream of freedom, of connecting with nature, of feeling powerful and at peace. For Ed to ask her to sell the horse felt like he was asking her to kill a part of herself. When Ed finally understood this, he was able to see the situation not as a budget line item, but as something deeply important to the woman he loved. They were then able to find a compromise that honored her dream while also addressing his financial concerns. To get out of gridlock, you have to become a dream detective. You have to create a safe space to talk about the hidden hopes and values behind each person's position. The goal isn't to make the dreams compatible, but to understand and honor them. You ask questions like, "What does this mean to you? Tell me the story behind this. What's your ideal dream here?" You listen without judgment. Once you understand the dreams, you can work on a temporary compromise that respects both. You define your non-negotiable areas and your areas of flexibility. You accept that the problem will likely never go away, but you agree to live with it and manage it as a team. This process not only breaks the gridlock, it creates a profound sense of intimacy and connection. And that intimacy, that sense of being a team, leads us to the final principle, the roof that completes the sound relationship house. Principle number 7 is to create shared meaning. A marriage is more than just raising kids, paying bills, and having sex. For it to be truly rich and fulfilling, it needs a spiritual dimension. This doesn't necessarily mean religion. It means creating an inner life together, a culture rich with symbols, rituals, and an appreciation for your shared roles and goals. It's about building a sense of we-ness. This shared culture has 4 pillars. The first is rituals of connection. These are the structured, dependable traditions you create together. It could be how you always have dinner together without the TV on, how you celebrate birthdays, your special way of saying goodbye in the morning, or a weekly date night. These rituals reinforce your identity as a couple and a family. The second pillar is support for each other's roles. A marriage feels more meaningful when you have a similar philosophy about your roles in life, as spouses, as parents, as workers. It's about understanding and respecting what each role means to your partner and supporting them in it. The third pillar is shared goals. These are the dreams you share for your life together. It could be a goal to live in a certain place, to achieve something in your careers, or to create a certain kind of life for your children. When you work toward these goals together, it creates a powerful sense of purpose. And the fourth pillar is shared values and symbols. These are the fundamental beliefs that guide your lives. They might be represented by actual symbols in your home, like religious icons, or a family photo album, or by the family stories you tell, the ones that embody the values you want to pass on. When a marriage has this shared sense of meaning, conflict becomes less intense, and life together feels like a grand, shared adventure. You're not just roommates, you're a family, on a journey together, building something that matters. And that is the essence of the 7 principles. You build a foundation of friendship through love maps, fondness, and admiration, and turning toward. You manage conflict by accepting influence, solving your solvable problems, and overcoming gridlock by honoring each other's dreams. And you build a life of purpose and meaning on top of it all. It's not easy, but it's a clear path forward, a map to a lifetime of love. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through Drive, John Gottman's work, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what makes these ideas so powerful. After decades of research, after observing thousands of couples, what Gottman offers us is not a magic bullet, but a message of profound and practical hope. The most revolutionary idea, for me, is the shift in focus away from conflict and toward friendship. For so long, we were told that the sign of a healthy relationship was the ability to fight well. Gottman shows us that's only a small part of the story. A much better sign of a healthy relationship is how couples treat each other when they're not fighting. It's in the quiet, everyday moments, the shared joke, the knowing glance, the simple question, "How was your day?" that the real work of a marriage is done. This is incredibly empowering, because it means we don't have to wait for a crisis to improve our relationships. We have hundreds of opportunities, every single day, to make a small deposit in our partner's emotional bank account. Another beautiful insight is the idea of perpetual problems and hidden dreams. What a relief to know that it's okay not to solve everything. The pressure to resolve every disagreement is immense, and it often leads to frustration and despair. Gottman gives us permission to accept that some differences will always exist. The challenge isn't to eliminate them, but to learn to talk about them, to live with them, and to understand the deeper dreams that fuel them. This transforms conflict from a battle to be won into an opportunity for deeper understanding and intimacy. It turns your partner from an adversary into a person with a rich inner world that you get to explore. So, how can you start applying these principles in your own life, right now? You don't have to tackle all 7 at once. Gottman himself suggests a simple framework he calls the magic 6 hours a week. It's a small investment of time that can yield enormous returns. It breaks down like this. Before you leave for the day, spend just 2 minutes finding out one thing that's happening in your partner's day. That's 10 minutes a week. When you come home, have a 20-minute stress-reducing conversation. That's an hour and 40 minutes. Every day, find a way to show your appreciation and affection. A simple thank you or I love you. That's about 35 minutes a week. Show physical affection, a hug, a kiss before sleep. Another 35 minutes. And once a week, have a date. Just the two of you, for about 2 hours. Finally, once a week, have a State of the Union meeting for an hour to talk about what's going right in your relationship and to work through any issues that have come up. When you add it all up, it's about 6 hours. 6 hours a week to build a strong, lasting, and deeply meaningful connection. It's a small price to pay for what is, as the book reminds us, one of the greatest gifts life has to offer. That was a deep dive into the 7 principles for making marriage work by Drive. John M. Gottman and Nan Silver. We've explored the highlights today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This podcast is designed to help you decide if a book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, I truly encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your relationships and your daily life. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.